From LPM,
Louisville Public Media.
Support for the Louisville Public Media podcast incubator comes from the Community Foundation of Louisville, helping donors in our community establish charitable funds to meet philanthropic goals, creating opportunities to give more through scholarship, charitable checking, and donor-advised funds, and helping donors create a charitable legacy through their estate plan. More at cflouisville.org.
Welcome to Where Y'all Really From, a podcast about Asian Americans in Kentucky. I'm Charlene Buckles.
And I'm Dan Wu.
And just like that, we wrap season 1 of Where Y'all Really From.
It's been a whirlwind, honestly, from conception to release and now the end of our season, just like that.
It went by really fast. I mean, I can't believe that we've already wrapped.
Yeah, and really, really amazing. We've had 12 great episodes with just as many guests, and really cool to see how many common themes really threaded through the whole season and through all of these different stories. Starting off with, the question that we ask in every episode, which is, where y'all really from? Where are y'all from? How people interpret that question, how people react to it, their attitudes, and they were all pretty different,
No, they really was. It was really interesting too. Especially Donna, I think she had said where she grew up in like San Francisco, and it was never really a thing for her. She really never thought about it until maybe like moving here, and it was a little othering. But yeah, I mean, I just thought it was really interesting to hear people's takes on it. I mean, a lot of people said sometimes I don't think about it and it's totally fine. And others are like, yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Absolutely. Another thing that kind of came through, we talked about issues like colonization. Danny Quintos in her episode, that was such a great episode. And she really tied the idea of how do you decolonize yourself or your mind when you yourself are the product of colonization. And that was a deep, deep cut. I
mean, I had to pause the episode when she said that because I was just like, oh, that's wow. I wrote that down and put it on a sticky to just remind myself to constantly ask that question. She's brilliant. I just love Danny. And people had referred, to the concept of decolonizing throughout the season. I mean, John, when he had talked about music, he referred to decolonizing music and what that means to not be necessarily in that Eurocentric, the Eurocentric music scene almost, and how you intertwine your heritage throughout your creation process or your creative process. I mean, I just thought that was really neat.
Yeah, it really makes you realize that when we talk about people and cultures being marginalized, it really applies to every single aspect of our lives, whether it's our names, our languages, even into things like art and music.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it seems like a very common theme. Even when we were talking about, raising kids, Melanie and I had talked about that and what that means, because there is a lot of colonization mindset, I think, with children. And actually, Danny Quintos is the one who pointed that out in her IG story to me about decolonizing parenthood. And I thought that was also really interesting.
Yeah. And then we talked a lot about the model minority myth and in a lot of ways how we kind of suffer these sort of daily microaggressions, some of which are very sort of disguised in a way because people think about sometimes microaggressions as being negative or aggressive when sometimes they're in the guise of compliments and, oh, you must be really smart, you must be really good at math, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Or you don't have an accent, where there's a lot of instances throughout the season in which people are like, I didn't think of it as a microaggression until afterwards. And so I just thought that was really interesting. And then thinking that, and people had referred about the model minority as well, as that, as Asians, we're not white or black, but we are still a minority. And people see us as this group that's supposed to be, quote unquote, good and assimilate. But then we still get these microaggressions as a group, which I thought was very interesting because we're still, at the end of the day, we're still, quote unquote, the other. Mm-hmm. I thought this was a theme that really tied throughout. Of course, we are interviewing AAPI Kentuckians, but everyone referred to Kentucky as our home, and that we are also Kentuckians. Aimee, who is a refugee that is from Bowling Green, that was a incredible episode where she just said, "This is the first time my people have had a home, and it's in Kentucky," which was, I thought, incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And then Melanie even said, "I wasn't born here. My parents are not from here, but it doesn't make me less Kentuckian." Which, again, so it just tied. Like, I think you said it best in one of the episodes, that we are also part of the fabric that makes Kentucky.
That's right. And we don't have to prove ourselves in terms of how long we've been here, how long our ancestors or our parents have been here. That just the fact that we're here at all makes us Kentuckians.
Absolutely. And of course, there's so many different favorite bits throughout all the episodes. Dan, what were some of your favorite little tidbits in some of the episodes?
So many great moments. I'll probably start off with Dr. Neeli Bendaputi's concept of the glass cliff. We had talked to her about the fact that a lot of times minority or marginalized folks or people of color or women or queer folks are brought into positions of power after, big scandals and after the system itself, the institution that they're stepping into, needs a whole lot of reform and change. And she mentioned the idea of the glass cliff, in that you're basically set up to fail. You're brought into a really, really difficult situation that's very hard to overcome. And then when you don't overcome it, people say, well, we tried a black CEO and that didn't work out. We tried an Asian president and that didn't work out. And the idea of that being such a trap was a real eye-opening idea.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard about the concept of glass cliff. And I just love that she took it one step further and said, and that's why I think it's so important to put BIPOC women in leadership roles, so that I'm not the only one, so that we could go into this together. I thought that was such a revolutionary concept that was just so powerful. I've definitely reframed my mind after I heard her talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Danny Quintos reading her poem "Scary Spice" was terrific.
That I had to rewind. Like she read it, and then I rewound it, and then I did it again. I mean, it's just such a powerful poem. Of course, her poem. I do have to plug in that her book of poems is coming out next April. So go follow her on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. On the less serious and funnier side, Joanne Lynn Camille's birth story was pretty hilarious.
That's pretty hilarious. I want to go to Western Kentucky University and find that room.
Yeah. We don't want to give too much away. You have to go back and check out that episode, but that's terrific. How about for you?
One of my probably the most powerful stories is when Sarah Graves said, and she's the Korean adoptee, and she said that when her first child was born, she looked as a child and just realized that was the first time that she had known someone who shared a DNA with her. And I just thought that was such a powerful point and a powerful perspective that I had never considered. And it was just really, I mean, it just really stopped me in my tracks. And I just thought that was very, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And then I also, in Angie Weaver's episode, I did not realize that, she is one of the Pacific Islander guests that we had. And she is from a nation who, what they're known for, wildly enough and kind of scary, is that they are going to be the first nation to go under because of global warming. And they will be the first nation to be environmental refugees, which I thought that was just, wow. I mean, that was wild.
Yeah, she's from an island called Caribus, which is part of Micronesia. And they are certainly, I mean, they're on the very front lines, and they're going to be the first people to be affected, being small island nations in the middle of the ocean. They're going to be swamped and pretty soon to be without their original home. And that's very, very poignant.
Wow.
Yeah. Ending the show every episode, we do our lightning round with our fun questions. And boy, did we get some fun answers. We asked folks what their superpower was, and we got everything from arguing to learning new instruments to knitting. And my favorite one is making it happen, because that's how we do, making it happen.
I love that. And then the jams were all over the place, too. Classical, Prince, Iron Maiden. I thought Iron Maiden was hilarious, considering the guest who said it.
That's right.
90s slow jams, Beyonce, of course. NBA intro music, which I guess makes sense. You know, you're trying to hype yourself up.
Yeah,
and then one very relatable, Baby Shark.
Baby Shark was great, but I think Beyonce was the winner there. That came up at least 3 or 4 times in the season. Comfort food is one of my favorite questions, and we got all kinds of stuff. Noodles, of course, cheesy potatoes made by one's husband, Costco cake. Mom's cooking came up a lot, and rice was probably the big winner of this one.
Rice.
But my favorite was Doritos in buttermilk from Angie Weaver's episode. And I'll give this one away because I asked her when I heard that, I was like, wait, are you taking Doritos and dipping them in buttermilk like a salsa? And she said, no, I'm crumbling the Doritos into buttermilk and eating it like cereal. And I was,
when I heard that, it was, I thought I wanted to try it, but then I was like, that's a lot. That's a commitment.
Yeah, I was intrigued and horrified at the same time.
Rice is definitely the biggest theme of that comfort food, and
Yes.
it was just so interesting, all the variations that we had of like rice with some type of stew or sauce, but then like also just like plain rice. So, plain rice was a comfort food for many, which I thought that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the Kentucky question of what makes you, what's the most Kentucky thing you do? There was a lot of variation, and it just all seemed very familiar for me. The love horses, basketball, of course, country dips, which I had to laugh about that one, dropping your G's and calling your grandma Meemaw, and of course, bourbon. Bourbon was very relatable there.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a great season, and we're already planning and plotting season 2. We've got some great ideas, some great guests lined up, and we're just super, super excited about it.
Until then, be sure to stay in touch with us at whereyallreallyfrom.org.
Want to give a special thanks to Mark Royce at Radio Lex for helping record and engineer a whole bunch of our episodes this season.
Dan, what did you learn from this whole process of making a podcast with LPM and, of course, the help with Radio Lex, and then all 4 of us, Nima and May, myself and you, collaborating on all of this? What do you think is the biggest takeaway for you?
I think my biggest takeaway was it takes a village, having all of us come together with our creativity, with our resources, with Louisville Public Media, with Radio Lex, just all coming together and making it happen, and how quickly and efficiently we made it happen, kind of guerrilla style. So I'm amazed, and I'm impressed, and I'm honored to be amongst this creative, go get 'em kind of group.
Yeah, +1 on that. We have such a powerhouse behind us. It's been really inspirational. I do love what I learned the most is I love that. I think you had said it once that it's let's make room for everyone. The and instead of there's so many ideas that get thrown around all the time, and I'm always thinking the first thought of how are we going to do this logistically, and is there room and is there time? And I loved how everyone has said, there's always room, there's always time, let's do this, and which is just very, very inspirational. And the second big lesson that I learned too is that there's just so many stories, and there's so many of us within the state of Kentucky. There's always room for everyone, and all of our stories are just so different, but yet feel so familiar. And I have just loved that about this process of listening to everyone's stories from all of our different guests and all our different perspectives. And as different as they are, it all feels so familiar to me, what they're saying, and that for me has been very inspiring and powerful.
Yeah, here to all of that. All right, Charlene, see you on the flip side.
Thanks, Dan. See you all in season 2. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Where Y'all Really From is created by Dan Wu, Charlene Buckles, Nima Kulkarni, and May Surmak, and hosted by Dan and Charlene. Our show is edited by Alex Cooper, and our music is by Kojin Toshiro. Graphic design by Leanne Gann. Where Y'all Really From is part of the Louisville Public Media Podcast Incubator with support from the Community Foundation of Louisville, Podchaser, Rankings.io, and the Eye Care Institute's Butchertown Clinical Trials. Our executive producer is Laura Ellis. For more information, visit whereyallreallyfrom.org.
It's getting better and better. You're the woman I've been dreaming of. The only one that I love to love. You're the one and I just can't get enough. Just can't get enough. And it gets better and better. Getting better.
Support comes from the Eye Care Institute and Butchertown Clinical Trials, where they strive for diversity, equity, and inclusion within their staff, patients, and clinical trial participants. To learn more, visit butchertown.clinic.
I'm Rachel Martin, host of NPR's Up First podcast. On Up First, we bring you the day's biggest stories, fast. And now WFPL's bringing you the same thing for Louisville. Listen to the WFPL Daily News Briefing for the news you need to start your day. Find it on your podcast app or at wfpl.org/dailynews.